My name is Rex and I am 62 years old. I never imagined that after a lifetime of sacrifice, love, and hard work, the most painful words I would ever hear would come from my own family. But life has a strange way of revealing the truth when you least expect it. The night my daughter-in-law shouted at me during dinner was the night everything changed. And strangely enough, it was also the night my real life began. The invitation. It was a quiet Sunday evening when my son Daniel called me. "Dad, come over for dinner tonight," he said. "Clara made roast chicken." His voice sounded normal, maybe even a little cheerful. That alone made me happy. Since my wife passed away 3 years earlier, dinners with family had become rare. I lived alone in a small apartment not far from Daniel's house. I didn't ask for much, just a little time with my son and my grandchildren. So when he invited me, I felt grateful. I dressed neatly, combed my grey hair, and picked up a small bag of fruits from the market. My late wife always used to say, "Never visit someone empty-handed. Old habits stay with you." As I walked toward their house, the streetlights flickered on, and a cool breeze moved through the trees. I remember thinking how peaceful everything looked. I had no idea that peace would shatter within the hour. The cold welcome. When I knocked on the door, Clara opened it. She gave me a quick glance. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. There was no smile, no warmth. But I ignored it. Not everyone expresses kindness the same way, I told myself. Inside, the dining table looked beautiful. Plates were arranged neatly, candles were lit, and the smell of roasted chicken filled the room. Daniel sat at the table scrolling on his phone. My 2 grandchildren, Leo and Mia, were sitting quietly with their tablets. "Grandpa," Mia said softly when she saw me. That small moment warmed my heart. I sat down and placed the fruit bag on the table. "I brought some oranges," I said. Clara glanced at them. "We already have fruit," she replied coldly. The room felt tense. Still, I tried to keep the mood light. "So Leo, how's school?" I asked. "Good," he said without looking up. Daniel barely spoke. Clara kept serving food without saying much. And the silence at that table slowly became heavy. The explosion. Halfway through dinner, Clara suddenly put down her fork. The sound of metal hitting the plate echoed across the room. She looked directly at me. "You know," she said slowly, "this situation can't continue." I blinked, confused. "What situation?" Daniel shifted slightly in his chair, but stayed silent. Clara leaned forward. "You living like this?" I frowned. "I'm not sure what you mean." Her voice suddenly became sharp. "You living off our family?" The words struck me like lightning. "I'm not living off you," I said quietly. "I pay my own bills." But she shook her head angrily. "You still take space. You still come here expecting food, attention, support." Then she slammed her hand on the table and shouted the words that would stay with me forever. "You are a burden to my family. Get out." The room froze. Even the children stopped breathing for a moment. The silence that hurt most. I slowly turned to my son. "Daniel," I said softly. He looked at me, then quickly looked down again. "Maybe Clara is right," he muttered. That moment hurt more than anything else. Not the insult, not the shouting, but the silence of the son I had raised with love. Memories flooded my mind like a storm. The nights I stayed awake when he was sick. The weekends I worked overtime to afford his education. The day I sold my old car to help him start his business. Everything I had done for him. And now, I was just a burden. The work. I placed my spoon gently on the table. Then I stood up. Clara looked satisfied, as if she had won some invisible battle. Daniel didn't move. Before leaving, I looked at my grandchildren. "Take care of yourselves," I said softly. Then I picked up my coat and walked out. No one followed me. No one stopped me. Not even my son. The long night. That night I walked for hours. The streets were quiet. Most houses had their lights on, families sitting together, laughing, sharing meals. I sat down on a park bench under a dim streetlight. For the first time in years, I felt completely alone. But something strange happened in that loneliness. I began asking myself a simple question. Why am I begging for a place in someone else's life, when I still have my own life to live? That question changed everything. A new beginning. 2 weeks later, while buying groceries, I met an old friend named Marcus. "Rex, is that really you?" he said with a big smile. We hadn't seen each other in nearly 20 years. Over coffee, I told him everything that had happened. He listened carefully, then said something that stayed with me. "Rex, you spent your whole life building others. Maybe it's time to rebuild yourself." Marcus owned a small antique furniture workshop. Before I could say anything, he added, "Come work with me." I laughed. "I'm 62 years old." He shrugged. "And wood doesn't care about your age." Learning again. My first day in the workshop was exhausting. My hands were rough from sanding wood, my back ached. But something inside me felt alive. Piece by piece, I began restoring broken furniture. Old tables, damaged chairs, cracked cabinets. Every item had a story. Every repair brought something back to life. And slowly, I realized something powerful. Just like those broken pieces of furniture, people can also rebuild themselves. The success. Months passed. Then a year. Our small workshop became famous for restoring antique furniture beautifully. One day, a collector paid a huge amount for a table I restored. Marcus slapped my back. "See, I told you, you're talented." For the first time in years, I felt proud again. Not as a father, not as someone trying to please others, but simply as Rex, a man who still had purpose. The unexpected visitor. One afternoon, the workshop door opened. I looked up. It was Daniel. He looked tired and older. "Dad," he said quietly. I stayed silent. He walked closer. "Clara left me 6 months ago," he admitted. "Our marriage fell apart." Then he looked at the floor. "I should have stood up for you. I was weak. I'm sorry. Forgiveness." I looked at my son carefully. Despite everything, he was still the little boy I once carried on my shoulders. "I forgive you," I said. Tears filled his eyes. But I added something important. Forgiveness doesn't mean life goes back to how it was. He nodded slowly. And for the first time in a long time, we spoke like two adults learning to understand each other. Today I am still Rex, 62 years old. I spend my days restoring beautiful furniture. My workshop smells of fresh wood and varnish. Sometimes my son visits. Sometimes my grandchildren help me sand small pieces of wood. Life didn't turn out the way I once imagined. But strangely, it turned out better. Because I finally learned the most important lesson of all. Moral of the story: never allow anyone, even family, to make you feel worthless. Your value does not disappear because someone fails to see it. Sometimes the moment you walk away from disrespect is the moment you finally walk toward your true life.